Hey guys, Red Razor here again with another build. This time, I'm going to show you how to level this Pathfinder build through the campaign and how it's optimized and the way to make your campaign experience as smooth as possible, how to scale your damage, and essentially when to do what. As you can see, I am using Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod in Act 1. That's because in Act 1, you don't have any poison scaling nodes. Poison Burst Arrow doesn't have any of that Pierce or anything. It just doesn't feel good to use until you get a couple things to make it feel good. It does require a small amount of investment. So we use Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod because it doesn't require any upfront investment to actually clear stuff and kill bosses. I do cover when to make that swap, what you need in this video, so I highly recommend you watch it and check out the different things. I go over what makes it feel smooth and all that good stuff. But as you can see, I am killing bosses. Stuff is dying. You'll notice that it is a little bit different from my other build. That's because in the campaign, I found that scaling elemental damage works better than pure fizz for the campaign. It's easier to scale elemental damage in the campaign, so you can get more damage, you can kill bosses faster, you can clear faster, and essentially get to the maps faster. As you can see, look, I did the trial boss. I'm level 22 here. It took me a couple minutes to kill this boss with a bunch of buffs. You can trial repeatedly until you complete it. It is possible to do it. I did this first try. My recommendation is to over level a little bit before you come in here and do it. It'll just make sure you have more damage and you'll just kill them faster. It'll be easier. You won't have to try as hard. As you can see, I leveled up to 23 there. But this is after I ascended. I mean, I've started fully leaning into the poison. You can tell that the damage is good. Like, everything is dying. My boss damage is good. I do have two setups that you'll want to use for bosses and clearing. That is in the guide. Once you get to enough sockets, you can just fit all of it. But when you only have 2 or 3 sockets, you have to swap a couple gems around versus bosses or just running around looking for bosses. But as you can see, I am killing everything decently fast. Everything is dying. I'm up to 3 poisons now. The clear is good. I mean, look, everything just dies very quickly. And same thing to bosses. To view the skill tree, you're just going to come up here, click this, and I basically walk you through as you get more levels, your ascendancies, and all that stuff. We're going to go ahead and go through it. We're going to go ahead and just basically gloss over what you want to do. So for your first 15 levels, obviously you're using Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod, as we discussed in the gameplay videos before. So you're essentially just going to pass through here, Honed Instincts, File Wounds, come up here and grab Harness the Elements. Once you got that, you can go to the next one. It's essentially the same thing. You're just going to go on and path down to this, grab this on your way down. There's one decision to be made here, right? This depends on how much currency you've been dropped. If you've gotten at least 1 exalt at this point and you have bought those plague finger gloves that you see in the build, you can go ahead and path up here towards Pierce the Heart. If you haven't gotten those plague fingers gloves yet, you're going to want to grab this first and then grab the other one after. So keep in mind, plague finger gloves, if you have them, go Pierce the Heart. If you don't, grab acceleration and then just go to the other one based on which route you chose. You basically just grab these nodes on your way. So we'll go to the next one. This right here is when you should have swapped to poisons at this point. You're going to want to come up here, grab Lasting Toxins, grab Stacking Toxins. Then you're going to want to come over here, grab Crippling Toxins. Once you have those 3 nodes, you can go on path all the way up here, and you can grab these poison nodes. You should be swapping to Poison Burst Arrow at this point. You should have a decent bow. You should have those gloves. If you have those 2 things, your damage shouldn't be bad. You should be able to kill stuff and clear. If you follow the support gems, mapping and clearing should be good. We'll go to level 65. This is as you're getting closer to the end of the campaign. Essentially, all you're going to do is you're just going to come in here and you're going to grab another poison node and damage node. One thing to note, I do have this on here with a good quiver. essentially as you're going through the campaign, if you manage to pick up around like Act 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, a really good quiver that has a lot of damage on it, like increased damage with bow skills or triple LE damage, a lot of attack speed, just essentially a good quiver that adds a lot of damage to your skills, you're gonna want to grab this node right here. This basically will just almost double what your quiver gives you, as well as this right here, feathered fletching. You'll want to grab this after you grab uh, kite runner. So this one doesn't apply as much with the good quiver. I mean, if you have a lot of prod speed on the quiver, that's why I included it in this section. You'll want to grab it with it basically being doubled from these nodes. If you have good prod speed on the quiver with that node up there, this adds a lot of damage. At this point, you should be pushing the end of the campaign. I recommend you go check out my other end game build guide. It essentially is what you want to do when you start converting to fizz damage, because at this point you should be looking for pure fizz and replacing those plague finger gloves by the end of the campaign. You can use it in the maps, it does work, but if you want to get to like tier 15 maps, you do need to make that swap. And so you're going to want to unspec points like these elemental nodes as you make that swap. As you see here with the ascendancy, you can see that I've got them selected here. So one thing to note, this is very, very, very important. Your first ascendancy, when you complete it, you're gonna want to take the 6 skill points. It is just much stronger than your poisons being spread. With our pierce and everything, this doesn't really add a whole lot, to be honest with you. And so you just want to take the 6 skill points. It allows you to just get all these other nodes faster. It allows you to get, that swap faster. In the next one, as you can see, I've got the second one done. This is something that you're going to have to determine for yourself. I can't tell you what level's the best level to do this, but at some point, you're going to have to give up 6 skill points. So you're going to have to unspec 6 skill points, and you're going to have to take away Traveler's Wisdom, and you're going to want to come up here and double the number of poisons. You'll get more value to the double number of poisons once you have all these +1 poison nodes, right? It's a lot of value. You go from like 3, 4 poisons to 6 to 8. That's a lot of damage. You'll get more damage from that than the 6 skill points. Keep that in mind. I can't tell you when to make that swap. You'll just have to mess with it and figure it out as you go. It really just depends on your damage and all that good stuff. I've got a pre-poison swap and a post-swap. Essentially, you're going to follow the pre-poison swap until you get the required things for the swap. So essentially, you're going to need Pierce the Heart, these gloves, and a good bow, and potentially quiver. Once you acquire those 4 things, you should be able to swap. Ideally, you're going to want to get some of these +1 poisons and poison damage nodes before you make that swap, so your poisons have a little bit of scaling to them as well. You can just mess around with it. You can put on a poison burst arrow to go along with this and just kind of test it and see when your damage starts actually getting there. Once you notice that the poison arrow is actually like doing decent, you can make that swap and kind of just lean into it and go full throttle into the post swap. But until then, like I said, you're going to want to follow this: Lightning Arrow, Flame Wall, Lightning Rod, Herald of Thunder. The support gems, I've got them on here in order of importance. Just kind of fill them out as you see fit. I mean, ideally, you want to get Lightning Arrow maxed out first. Your Flame Wall and Lightning Rod will help with bosses and clearing, because they just add damage. But your main one you want to get filled out, your first 2 supports, is probably Lightning Arrow, Herald of Thunder. You're just going to take that as your first buff, just until you can make that swap. So it just gives your clear even more potential or potency. Once you're able to make that swap, a lot of those support gems from these do carry over into the post swap. So like you got like Martial Tempo right here. You have Scatter Shot that you use on your Lightning Rod. So you're not wasting support gems by any means. It shouldn't be too hard to swap when you do make that swap. I've got 2 Poison Burst heroes here. As you can see, Scatter Shots for clearing. When you go into bosses, you're going to want to put in Martial Tempo. So as you can see here, this is what I do. I've only got 2 sockets at the moment, but you've got Scatter Shot, you've got Martial Tempo. You can just swap it. I keep it on the bow shot just so it's like storage. And you can just swap just like that. Like I said, one's for clearing, one's for bosses. So when you walk into a boss room, just make that swap. It'll make your damage a little bit better on single target versus clearing. Gas arrow, got them all here. You'll notice that I've got tier 2s and tier 3s on here. Just fill them in as you're able to unlock them. It'll just give you the most damage. You could throw other stuff in there in the meantime if you don't see it on the list, but in terms of like most value, what you see on here is what you got. And it's like, for example, gas arrow, you got persistence, momentum, deadly poisons, and then long shot. The reason why I have the extra one here is like until you get deadly poisons, which is a tier 3, you can use long shot. So you would just put that in, and then when you unlock a tier 3, you can replace it with deadly poison, because you're not going to have more than 3 supports by the end of the campaign. So that's just something to keep in mind. This is what you want. As you can see, I've got Despair, Dark Effigy, and Flame Wall. One thing to note for these skill gems, on your skill tree, you're going to want to take Intelligence until you're able to use these, and then the rest is Dexterity. So you're just going to have to balance your Dexterity and Intelligence for your gear and skills as you're leveling. Just pay attention to it. Everybody's going to be different. Depends on if you have any Intelligence or Dexterity on your gear. So just, I have it defaulted Dexterity on the tree essentially, but you're going to have to turn some of those into Intelligence. Make note of that. And yeah, this should get you towards the end of the campaign. Once you get towards the end of the campaign, you can go look at my other build guide. You're going to want to swap into a more pure Fizz-based build. So you're going to want to phase out the Plague Fingers and all the LE damage and go for pure Fizz. My other build covers that setup. Follow that. That'll get you set up through that. Now we're going to go over the gear. As you see here, I've just got a short bow, quiver, 2 rings, and these gloves. You have to get these gloves before you make the swap. Your damage will not be there until you acquire a pair of these. You should be able to get them in Act 1. Once you get 1 to 2 Exalt drops, you can just come up to PoE Trade, right? You just search Plague Finger Gauze Wraps, and boom, right here. 4 minutes ago, 1 Exalt. Scroll down. I don't know why it's showing me offlines, but you just message somebody online, get it for 1 Exalt. There's a chance you'll have to get it for 2. Just depends if there's any ones listed at 1 Exalt, if you get lucky. Otherwise, you're looking at 2 Exalts. Very cheap. You can probably get your first 2 Exalts in the first act. If you're ever struggling for currency, you can always farm bosses that you've already killed again. They drop a lot of loot. It's a good way to try and get like an Exalt or 2 for your gear if you just aren't lucky. Just go re-kill a couple bosses. Same thing with these other pieces of gear. You can probably find most of this on the ground, but let's say your damage feels like it's lacking and you need a damage upgrade. You can't get a bow. It's hard to find stuff on the ground in the campaign, so you can either farm a boss to get an upgrade, or if you have a couple Exalt laying around, like 3 or 4, you can also come to the trade website, right? And you just type in item category bow. Right here where it says requirements, you can basically put in your max level. So like, right, let's say I was level 28. You just put in 28 here. It won't show me a bow that I can't equip. And then you'll come up to like damage per second. I'm just going to throw in 100 for the minimum. So it'll only show me bows that have 100 DPS or more. You can sort that by DPS. Take note, you don't want to pay 30 Exalts, right? You're going to want something cheaper. Just scroll down a little bit. Right here, like this guy's got it listed for 4. And then you just have to filter through it. You just got to find one that's like 4 or 5 Exalts that have high DPS. Right here, 3 Exalt. It's 126. So, like, that's good DPS. Like, to put it in perspective, everything you saw in the video was with my current bow, right? You can see my DPS right here is 117, and I'm level 40, right? So, you can get, like, bow upgrades really cheap if you get the currency for it. Just pay attention. Just sort it by total DPS and find yourself an upgrade. Try not to overpay. Like I said, just do a little bit of searching. Like, you could take this one, right? It's a pure Fizz bow. But, I mean, it's 126 DPS. There. You just have to look and make, like, the best educated guess. I can't tell you which one to buy because the options are going to be different as people buy and sell them. But that's how you'll do that. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it a lot. If you have any suggestions, things you want to see, or comments, or even about this video in particular, please let me know in the comments below. It would mean the world to me if you could like and subscribe. Thank you for watching again. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.